Starting June 2013, Werner Enterprises will transition from the current electronic logging system to the QHOS electronic logging system. In order to complete this transition, there is some information you, as a Werner Enterprises driver, need to know, including when to stop using macros to log, how to keep track of your remaining hours and 70-hour clock, how to retrieve your hours for enforcement officers, the amnesty period for log violations, and the materials you must have to complete the transition. This module will explain these topics in detail in order to make this transition as smooth as possible. To begin, let's discuss when you should stop using macros to log your hours. Starting June 2013, Werner Enterprises will turn on the Hours of Service application on the MCP 200 units. On this date, when the application is turned on, start changing your duty statuses and begin keeping your log records with the QHOS system on the MCP 200. Do not use macros to change your duty status anymore. However, you will continue to use all other macros listed on your new macro card. For example, still use the same macros to receive your trip information and to advise when you get loaded, empty out, or split a load. You will also continue to send macro 46 for your end-of-the-day inspection report. Note, some of these macros, such as macro 2, I have completed loading, will slightly change. For example, under the Werner logging system, you could change your duty status from the macro 2. Once the QHOS system is active, these lines will no longer be there since you have to change your duty status from the QHOS logging system. As soon as the Hours of Service application is active, it's going to show that you have a full 11, 14, and 70 hours on your clocks. The accuracy of this will vary depending on where you are at in your break schedule. For example, you may have just completed your 10-hour break. Therefore, you will have a full 11 and 14-hour clock. However, you may be on the third day of your 8-day cycle, so you would not have a full 70-hour clock. On the activation date, send a macro 49 to verify your available hours for the day. The hours you receive back from this macro will be your actual time. Continue to utilize macro 49 to check your hours through the transition period. Although you'll be receiving your remaining hours through the macro 49, continue to change your duty status on the QHOS system to generate a log history. Use macro 49 until you complete your first 8-day cycle for U.S. drivers, or a 15-day cycle for Canadian drivers on the QHOS system. Your 70-hour clock and 8 or 15-day recap also need to be managed through macro 49 during the initial transition period. As soon as the Hours of Service application is turned on in your truck, an 8-day recap for U.S. drivers or a 15-day recap for Canadian drivers will automatically be sent to your Qualcomm unit. This will enable you to not only keep track of the hours you'll gain back on your 70-hour clock through the initial transition week, but also help you plan your workdays. Once you've completed a 34-hour reset or finish a full 8 or 15-day cycle, an automated message will be sent to your Qualcomm informing you that your QHOS Hours of Service are accurate. At this point, you no longer need to use macro 49 to retrieve your remaining hours. Make sure to begin logging on the QHOS system and keep track of your hours on day 1, the activation day, because macro 49 will be turned off. As of this date, you will not be able to retrieve any log or hours information through macro 49. Let's now discuss how to retrieve your log records for enforcement officers during the QHOS transition period. If you're asked by an enforcement officer to provide your log records during the transition week, the first thing you should do is hand the officer the DOT Quick Reference Card from Qualcomm. This card gives the officer step-by-step instructions on how to view your logs. Next, send a macro 49 to retrieve your remaining hours. This provides the officer with the actual time you have remaining on your 11, 14, and 70-hour clocks. You should also send a macro 49 to provide the officer with your 8 or 15-day recap, since you won't have 8 days of log history on the QHOS logging system during the transition period. Finally, if the enforcement officer requests a hard copy of your log records, send Macro 49 requesting your 8 or 15-day recap be faxed to the officer. You can fax your QHOS log records to the officer by going to your 8-day tab and tapping the fax button on the bottom of the screen. Werner Enterprises and the log department understand that the QHOS logging system will take some time to adjust to. Therefore, Werner will allow a 60-day amnesty or grace period for log violations due to training. What this means is that, should you have a log violation, progressive discipline may be waived if the log department determines it was not a flagrant violation and that it was due to training and adjusting to the QHOS system. During this time, you'll still receive messages over the Qualcomm if you have a log violation. However, coaching and counseling for the violation may replace the progressive discipline. In order for you to be prepared for the QHOS transition, there are several materials you must have. The first item you'll need is the DOT Quick Reference Card. This card provides enforcement officers step-by-step instructions on how to view your log records. There's also a How to Use QHOS handout that you can use as a reference to help with the hours of service application on the MCP 200. A new macro card will be provided for your reference as well. This includes an updated list of macros that you'll use after moving to the QHOS system. Finally, have a paper logbook in your truck in case your Qualcomm goes down. You can pick up these items at any Werner Terminal safety desk or dedicated site. You can also pick up a paper logbook at any truck stop. If you have any questions on how to transition to the QHOS system, please contact your fleet manager or a member of the log department.